Welcome back to Legal Stories. Today we're diving into an interesting case from the Court of Appeal of Zambia involving Wesley Sibanda and Ferdinand Sakala Sibanda versus Point Present Investment Limited and Sasha Chizioka. This case highlights a growing concern in our society, transactions involving land as security for a debt. According to the other party in the dispute, the Sibandas offered this plot as security for a debt owed by Mrs. Sibanda's brother, Anor Zulu. The debt was meant to be repaid by May 28, 2021. When the debt was not paid, the parties executed a contract of sale for an agreed upon amount. Mr. Sibanda then handed over the land record and the signed assignment document intending to transfer the property to the lenders. However, things quickly became complicated. The Sibandas later placed a caveat on the property, preventing its transfer. For those unfamiliar, a caveat is a formal notice that someone has an interest in a property, warning others not to deal with it without their knowledge. The Sibandas refused to lift this caveat, leading the other party to take the matter to court. The Sibandas' defense was twofold. First, they argued the property was never genuinely for sale. They claimed they were coerced into signing the contract under pressure, simply to give Mrs. Sibanda's brother more time to recover from some investment losses. They argued that the transaction was intended only as security for a debt, not an outright sale. This is a vital distinction in law. The Sibandas then filed an application to dismiss the case entirely based on a few legal points. They questioned whether the contract of sale was invalid due to a lack of consideration. In simple terms, consideration means that for a contract to be valid, both sides must give something of value. They also questioned whether the documents were invalid because they hadn't been registered as required by the Lands and Deeds Registry Act. Finally, they asked whether a transaction that uses land as security for a debt could ever actually operate as a legal sale. The High Court, however, dismissed the Sibandas' application. The judge noted that the issue of late registration could potentially be cured by simply extending the time to register. More importantly, the High Court felt that the true intentions of the parties, whether this was a genuine sale or just security for a debt, could not be determined at this early stage through mere written statements. It needed a full trial to hear all the facts and live evidence. Dissatisfied with this decision, the Sibandas appealed to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal highlighted a key question in its analysis. When a contract of sale is executed alongside a debt, is that contract valid? And if default occurs, can that contract of sale legally be used to transfer the title of the property from the borrower to the lender? To answer this, the Court of Appeal looked back at its earlier decisions. In previous cases, the Supreme Court had already expressed deep concern about a growing tendency of money lenders to disguise their loan transactions as property sales. This often happens alongside unreasonable interest rates, ultimately leading to borrowers unfairly losing their properties. The Supreme Court had previously observed that even if parties sign what looks like a contract of sale, if the evidence shows it was consistently treated as a loan agreement with property acting as collateral, then a loan is its true nature. If a contract leans more towards a loan and the evidence supports it, the court will treat it as a loan, no matter what title is printed at the top of the document. Ultimately, the Court of Appeal agreed with the High Court. They decided that this matter was far too complex to be resolved through a quick preliminary procedure. The true nature of the agreement and the real intentions of the parties required a full trial. Therefore, the appeal was dismissed and the case was ordered to proceed to a full hearing. So, what are the key takeaways from this case? First, the importance of true intention. This case emphasizes that courts will look beyond the mere wording of a document to determine what the parties actually intended, especially in transactions involving land and debt. If something looks like a loan and acts like a loan, it may be treated as such, even if it's labeled as a sale. Second, always seek legal advice early. If you're using property as security for a debt, get independent legal advice. A lawyer will help ensure your agreement reflects your true intentions and is legally sound. Third, while laws like the Lands and Deeds Registry Act require property transfers to be registered, courts do acknowledge that sometimes late registration can be rectified. However, that doesn't automatically validate the underlying agreement if its true nature is disputed. And finally, understand the court's role in fairness. The courts are highly vigilant against exploitative practices where genuine loan agreements are distinguished as outright sales. This case reinforces the judiciary's commitment to protecting vulnerable parties and ensuring fair dealings. This case serves as an important reminder to be clear and transparent in all your dealings, especially when property is involved. Thank you for joining us on Legal Stories. If you found this summary helpful, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel.